Hi, everyone. It's Paige with the Missouri River Bird Observatory, and today I'm going to talk to you about cognitive ornithology, aka bird intelligence, and how we study it. In previous presentations, some of you showed an interest in ravens and blue jays, and you might already know that some of these birds are thought to be some of the most intelligent species, belonging to a bird family called corvids. So I thought a fun topic for a bonus webinar would be bird intelligence. You also seem to be focusing on observation, which I love. So we're also going to discuss how scientists have studied intelligence in birds, because it's more complicated than you might think. But forget the old saying about bird brains, because birds are pretty bright. They're capable of navigating thousands of miles during their biannual migrations, using tools to better access their food, and even counting from left to right. Some professors define intelligence as the ability to solve novel problems, or the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. And there are a lot of different definitions of intelligence and different types of intelligences. We're going to talk a little bit about those today. And at least some birds have the knack and have these different types of intelligences. Crows' reasoning skills might even be on par with those of a 7-year-old child. So they definitely have it. So we're going to figure out how scientists know this. So how would you go about studying that? Because unlike kids, birds can't be convinced to sit down and take IQ tests. So how do researchers figure out avian smarts? Well, they have a handful, so not very many, but a few bird-specific tests that assess the baseline braininess of a species as a whole and show the range of avian intelligence between species and individuals. Just like humans, some individual birds may be brighter than others. So this presentation is just a sampling of some of these standardized tests that scientists have used to gauge bird intelligence. So the first one is called the string test, and you may have heard of it before. And the skill that we're testing is problem solving. A bird is presented with two strings. One is visibly connected to a piece of food and the other is not. Can the bird pull the string that will bring its reward? So if the animal successfully chooses the right string more often than it chooses the wrong one in a series of trials, it shows that the bird can solve problems in its head, not just through trial and error. Many bird species have passed this test, including parrots, ravens, turkey vultures, and crows. And in one 2013 study, researchers found that pigeons could also successfully pull the right string when the experiment was simulated on a touchscreen, which was a method that they had to use with pigeons because they don't have the beaks and feet to be able to physically pull up a string. So they simulated it on a touchscreen, and the pigeons could successfully do the test. Other species, such as chimpanzees and human children, have also successfully completed the test, though it has stumped man's best friend, the dog. Another test is like a box test, and these can all be a little bit different, but the skill that we're testing is problem solving, comparative intelligence, which I'll talk about in a second. So researchers place food inside a clear box that has several different access points, and the smarter the animal, the faster it will figure out how to get to the food inside the box. So in one experiment for results, they found that chickadees that live at higher altitudes completed the task much more quickly than those that dwell at lower elevations. And this finding could indicate that difficult survival conditions lead to better problem-solving skills, which is very interesting. In another trial, researchers used the box test to compare the manner and speed with which crows and parrots explore their surroundings. So this is that comparative intelligence. And the different methods the species used to complete the same tasks helped the researchers conclude that though their minds work differently, these two species, crows and parrots, probably have similar cognition, something that has been difficult to really figure out in the past. Another problem-solving test is the Aesop's Fable test. So this is testing tool use and problem solving. And it's called that because in one ancient Greek lesson, a crow quenches its thirst by dropping small stones into a pitcher until the water is easily accessible at the top of the vessel. So this is using water displacement to get at to that food. So in 2014, researchers set up a similar scenario, providing birds a water-filled tube with floating food just out of reach, as you can see in this picture with sinkable objects. And the crows consistently put the objects into the tube until the treats were high enough to munch on. So I have a video of this crow performing these different Aesop's fable tests to show that it uses water displacement to be able to get at food and problem solve. So I think that it's pretty cool to watch. There's no sound to the video, so don't worry about if you can't hear anything, because there's no sound. So here we go. And I'm gonna stop it before the last test, just so we can talk about it. So I'm going to stop it there. So we can see that birds also, so you can see, it's really interesting to see this crow thinking and how it problem solves these different scenarios to get at that food. And birds also possess a number of different cognitive abilities that can be assessed with the standardized tests that we just showed you above. So researchers have developed new and creative ways to better understand specific elements of their brains. So let's talk about those. So one is called the spoiled food test. So this is understanding time and memory, that skills that we're testing. And in 1998, researchers gave scrub jays perishable food in the form of worms, and the birds hid them to eat later. This is called caching, and it's a pretty common practice among corvids, so jays, crows, ravens. And tracking those birds revealed that the jays stopped retrieving the worms after about 5 days, by which time the worms had started to decay. And what scientists and the researchers concluded was that birds are able to understand the passage of time. So kind of a fun, interesting test to carry out, but not a super surprising result, but definitely very interesting to be able to kind of show through this test. Another one, testing social intelligence and visual abilities, is this family ties test. So the researchers observed Siberian jays around a bird feeder, noting which acted aggressively. And they also tested each bird's genetic makeup. And when researchers looked at the genetic analysis and the aggressive behavior, they discovered that the jays were less friendly toward birds that aren't closely related to them. And how exactly these jays were able to identify their kin or their family members is unknown, but they may be able to tell by physical appearance or something else that we're not able to tune into. The researchers hypothesized that jays, which live and work cooperatively, wanted to keep outsiders away so as to limit competition from birds outside of their gene pool. So kind of family first mindset, which I think is really interesting. Another visual abilities test that kind of shows rapid learning and long-term memory. I think this one is very interesting. So researchers at the University of Washington had a feeling that the crows on campus, some of these crows, which they occasionally and temporarily brought into the lab, could recognize them. So to see if the birds truly did remember human faces, in 2010, the researchers put on masks and then behaved in a way that was dangerous. So capturing and banding crows, so something that is not necessarily dangerous or harmful to the crows, but something that the crows probably didn't like. And then also in neutral behavior, so not capturing the crows. And they caught and released 5 groups of up to 15 crows around Seattle. And for the next 3 years, the crows scolded and mobbed, aka like swooped around, pooped on anyone wearing that dangerous mask that had captured and banded the crows, even if it was on a different person or if the wearer was in a large crowd. And that study revealed that a single negative interaction is all it takes for crows to form a grudge. And what's even more is the antagonized birds recruited other crows to scold the offending humans. And the researchers aren't quite sure how they were able to do that. So the crows can remember these human faces. So don't mess with crows because they'll remember you and recruit their friends. Another really cool test is this matching memory test. So, testing memory, vision, creative problem solving, and something called analogous learning. And I'll talk about that more in a second. So crows were shown 3 cards, each with a different color or shape on it. And the middle card matched one of the 2 cards on either side. All of them had small cups underneath, and a reward was placed in the cup with the matching card. And the crows quickly became very skilled at locating the reward by matching. Then the researchers changed the task. None of the cards matched, but 2 had similar qualities. For example, the middle card might have 2 similarly sized squares, and its match would have 2 similarly sized circles. And to the researchers' surprise, the crows were able to complete this more complicated task with ease, even without training. They used the skills they'd gained in the first experiment to master the second. Apes and monkeys had asimilar tests in the past and proved to scientists that they had this analogical reasoning, or the ability to transfer skills learned in one task to a different one. And this crow study marked the first time an animal other than a mammal was shown to have analogical reasoning. So this is really cool and really interesting that the crows have this memory. Next, I'm just going to show you a short video of a crow completing a kind of multi-level task to get at a treat. And what I think is really interesting is it shows this analogical memory and reasoning as well, because they say that the crow knows all the parts of this different test, but it's the first time it's put all together. So I think it's really interesting. So here we go.
The meat is positioned so deep in the narrow box, it's out of reach of the crow's beak. But Alex has positioned a number of other objects nearby. The question is, can 007 use the tools available to solve the puzzle?
Imagine that you're a crow. Here's your food in a deep hole. How would you go about, with the tools available to you on this table, solving this problem?
The bird's toolkit includes a short stick hanging on a piece of string, 3 stones inside wooden cages, and a longer stick trapped in a plastic box. First, the crow must use the short stick to get the stones, and then use all 3 stones to get the long stick.
And now the crows can take this and probe it into the hole and roll, much better than I can, the food out of the hole and get themselves a nice tasty reward.
It's a complicated task. The crow is familiar with the individual pieces of the puzzle. He's done each of them separately for a food reward. But this is the first time he's seen them arranged like this. 8 separate stages that must be completed in a particular order if the puzzle is to be solved. If the bird succeeds, it'll be a world first. He takes time to have a look. And then starts with the short stick. He finds it too short to reach the food. He then sets off to get the first stone. Got it. But he doesn't seem to know what to do with it. And another. He appears to be stuck. But now something seems to click. He dispatches the first stone. Then returns to collect the last one. Got it. The final stage. Success. 8 individual stages complete. The crow performed all 8 tasks in the correct order.
So I think it's just really interesting to see. That bird thinking. And part of me wonders if, if a human was put with the same task, if they would be able to do it as quickly without any training, but we'll have to see. So another type of intelligence that I want to share with you that scientists have studied is a rhythm test, or testing something called tempo sensitivity. So in 2008, a cockatoo named Snowball, which is pictured here, took the internet by storm when his owners posted several videos of him dancing to popular songs and apparently keeping rhythm in the videos. So scientists saw the video and wanted to learn more. So they played a number of different songs and watched to see if the speed of the bird's movements changed accordingly, and too often to be pure chance. And what they found out, or what they concluded, was that Snowball is a great dancer, as are probably other birds like parrots, about as good as a human 4-year-old in their ability to keep tempo. So his sweet moves are the first evidence that birds have tempo sensitivity. And this also adds to the evidence that animals, including us, have a natural musical inclination, which I think is really cool. So thanks, Snowball, for helping us learn more about birds and ourselves. So I highly recommend, with your parents' or teachers' permission, to look up some of these videos of Snowball dancing to these different popular songs, because it's quite cute and he keeps tempo pretty well. We could all learn some dance moves from him. All right, well, that's the end of the presentation. And just to conclude, even though scientists have learned a lot about birds' cognition, in cognitive ornithology and have developed these creative ways to test it, there are also some aspects of bird intelligence that are just hard for us to grasp, let alone study. For example, we don't have homing abilities, so scientists still struggle to develop tests to understand how that works. We do have these few examples of the study of cognition, and you can observe the birds doing these similar behaviors in your own backyard. And there are all kinds of intelligence that we haven't even begun to fully understand, not just in birds, but in ourselves. And when we're studying to learn more about these birds, it just brings to mind how much there's still so much we can learn from these animals, even about ourselves. So that's my conclusion to cognitive ornithology, aka bird intelligence. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you're able to find some time to go out and look at some birds today. All right, bye everybody.